Alrighty, we're back with game two, and this is still unsideboarded. So this is a much better starting hand than that first game. I like this much better. I have this. I have these into this, and then into that, and with this disruption as well, which is very good. So I like my curve. We could draw more of these, and I wouldn't be I wouldn't be like this is a little land light, but it's not going to be that huge of an issue, I don't believe.
Also, to be fair, like your deck also has a lot of layers of the land, so you can keep a
Right,
relatively light hand too, in case you find like an oath or just an actual tune.
right.
So on my end though, like we have two lands, which is fine. Like like especially on the draw, we don't have to worry about getting them right away. We do have a couple pieces of aggression, and we have some way to disrupt the combo or creatures that he could play as well. So this is a good hand, especially on the draw. I would keep this 9 out of 10 times.
Leave my botanical sanctum.
So this is I like that he doesn't have black mana early, so we are able to play this Inventor Apprentice, and if he wants to remove it, he would have to do it on his turn, which is better for me.
Mm, that is much better.
Like if I can make him use his mana to try to disrupt me, it's just much better than.
We drew very well in that the Spire Canal, and we're able to deploy the servant. So now we have all our colors, provided this servant survives.
So now I have two options here. I could play one of these and try to slow him down, but that's also not as aggressive. There's nothing I'm necessarily scared of for next turn, so I think it's just safer to play one of these and buff up the Nerd Ape a little bit and start getting in for damage because I still have that same line I can do next turn as well.
Hmm.
So we're gonna play this Mountain, jam the Scrap Heap,
Okay. I
and get
mean,
in there for.
I'm not blocking.
You mean you can? I wouldn't be upset to
No,
be honest.
surprise. I'm not blocking.
Shucks.
All right, so we're going to go Aether Hub here, get an energy, and then we have two lines of play that we could do. Um, and I like playing, I like doing this line. We're gonna do that and that versus playing this one.
So now
So
he has a lot of mana too, which is
we're just
kind of
gonna
scary
pass the turn. I mean, I could combo next turn.
potentially.
Well, I'll give it no removal spell.
So we're gonna jam the swamp.
Okay.
It just gives the most options. Uh, so again, we have the same two lines as last turn. I think we're just gonna jam this one, just in case he does have a removal spell. I still want to try to get as much damage, and we still be able to keep up some of the disruption. So we're gonna tap two, play another Scrap Heap. This plays around Fatal Push or anything on the other Scrap Heap that's able to attack this turn, so we can still get in for the 2 damage with the Ventus Apprentice. And if he wants to kill the Apprentice, that's better for me actually, because in case the Scrap Heap ever gets to the graveyard, we have some way to get it back. So we're gonna attack in for this 5. Hopefully he blocks. I highly doubt it,
I
but
mean, no. I mean, I'm actually just going to fire off a harness lightning here on
yep.
the scrap heap and deal two. And like, yes, I'm still taking two in this situation. I could have double blocked and then done that. Unfortunately, he played the scrap heap scourger, so I wasn't able to just eat his Inventor's Apprentice. And that's something he knew about though, and he wouldn't just go for it. Right now, I have 6 mana. I have both parts of my combo. I can respect the shock. Um, the question is, do I respect the shock? And I think I think the answer is actually I don't respect the shock. because if he's shocking, okay, so he has 4 cards left, right? So there's 2 decisions to make here. I can respect it and go for it, or I can respect it and not go for it. But because how my hand lines up with those 2 cards and another card, he's just going to have. I'm not going to be able to beat the long game here, because this is not a hand that's equipped with all of the long game plan. However, most of my deck is equipped to beat the long game, so I could draw into many cards that would beat the long game. So it is like one hand in the. It's a toss up between whether I should or shouldn't. The fact that most decks only play 2 to 4 shocks and they're 75 makes it a little more appealing to go for it. I think it is a very aggressive line to go for it. It doesn't mean it won't be rewarded, but I do think it is a little more aggressive to go for it. And after all that talking, I believe that I am going to go for it. Let me just actually tap right, not like an idiot.
So that resolves. I don't have anything to do with that. No interaction.
Right. And this is not the party he's going to interact with anyway.
Yeah, so, like if I do have this shock that he talks about, I gotta wait a little bit later to do it.
And the cool thing is though too is if he does blow me out with the shock, I'm actually not entirely blown out. I still have 3 creatures on the board. I still have a Feldar Guardian to block a Scrap Heap Scrounger, and I'm still able to fight through attrition-y in this game. The Saheeli, if I just uptick it, is going to then just scry me to more threats, and I could win the game, whereas it could just get removed by him having an Unlicensed Disintegration next turn. And I think this is the safest time to go for it, because for the rest of the game, he could hold up 1 black and 1 to get back a Scrap Heap Scrounger every turn, and just keep up Unlicensed Disintegration the entire game. Whereas right now, he has to have exactly shock instead of any other removal in his deck.
Right. So, I do have the shock. So there's no hiding about it, but this is not the time you use it. So what you want to do, because he can always, when it flickers back in, target something else. So you have to wait for him to target the Saheeli at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So basically when the shock happens is when I go to target Saheeli is when he's going to shock.
So now I'm going to cast a shock targeting him and be able to redirect it so the spell will fizzle.
The ability will fizzle on the party. Yeah, you're good. So basically, what happens if you shock earlier when targeting the Guardian, which is actually a common misconception because most of the time you remove the Guardian with a removal spell in response to the Saheeli, then I would be able to actually flicker my Aether Hub and get an extra energy, and then keep up a 1-mana spell. So I mean, this way now I only get 1 for 1 damage. He still has 3 cards in hand. To my 1, I did lose a lot of them. So the payoff, I didn't win the game there, but I don't outwardly just lose the game either. I have a 1/4 blocker.
So we're gonna play that mountain, tap 3 because we're just the luckiest, and have the other removal spell for the Feldar. To still have the trigger for the Scrap Heap, and we could still leave up this ominous mountain.
Right.
And still get in for 5 damage and put him to 8, which is almost dead with when you have so much incidental burn in your deck with Unlicensed and other just removal spells that can just go to the face as well.
And this is another reason that I went for it last turn, is because if I wait for you to have an Unlicensed up, I have no good blocks this turn. Because I had a Saheeli and the Guardian in my hand as 2 of my cards. So if I just don't cast either of them, I'm not doing anything actually on the board, and I'm just way too far behind.
And at that point, I also never need to tap out again because I still have 5 power on the board with the Unlicensed and shock up. So I am covered no matter what. Whereas he needs to still answer my threats, which will also provide him to add to the board, which makes me react better as well.
Right. So I'm actually going to pass the turn here. Actually, I should actually play my land first. because there are interactions where I will want, after losing servants, I will want 5 mana.
So I have option here end of the turn. I could potentially use this shock, which cuts him off of mana. Um, I mean, he potentially is also holding up Deep Fiend, which I really can't play around either with the way my hand is structured. So if I try to slow his mana production down and make him block, that's also fine.
Hmm.
And if I attack, I'm still gonna like if I'm able to attack, then I still get in a lot of damage as well. And if he has a deep fiend in the middle on my upkeep, that's also no cards in his hand, and I still have live draws after that. So I think I am actually going to use the shock here,
Okay.
make him lose a creature if he wants to, for some reason, flash the deep fiend there too. That gives me more information. Okay, so he doesn't have the deep fiend in my upkeep. Doesn't mean he doesn't have it in my attacks.
I mean, so here's a position where if I do, or if I don't have the deep fiend, the best time to use a deep fiend in this situation would actually be after attacks, since he doesn't have too many threats. And my life total isn't too low at this point, where I could get a nice free block in. The problem is now I would have to tap my servant and sack it, so I wouldn't be able to block with two things.
Yeah, and that was another. I don't know if I said that, but that was another reason why I wanted the shock there. It makes him
Mhm.
also just keep it as a 1-for-1 at that point.
Right.
And none of my creatures going to graveyard is ever a bad thing with this deck.
Exactly.
Like if it blocks Adventus Princess, that's fine. He still takes 3, and if he doesn't, then I just get back to scrap heap anyways.
Right. Right.
So then join this mountain is a little bad though in general. I'm gonna hold in my hand, but I am gonna play this 2-drop.
Okay.
It's official. It's effectively a 3-mana 3/2 haster
Hmm.
since it's able to target itself. This allows to keep giving himself pressure against Zane. I'm gonna go to combat. Now this may also make him force him to use it now. He's a little scared about being attacked for 8, which is lethal too.
Yeah, if I had the DP in there, I would have harness lightning. I mean, I would have emerged it and tapped down his team, because I can't take 6 or 5 in this situation. So right now I have a harness lightning in my hand,
Sure.
and I'm going to go to blocks. I'm gonna make sure to block the apprentice. I want to make sure I block the apprentice before I use the harness lightning on the Scrap Heap Scavenger, in case he does have the shock, because I want to be able to get the block. So this is even though there's 2 shocks already, and they're playing 2 to 4 shocks in their 75. I don't remember what the exact number is. You don't want to remove the Scrounger to enable the trait, or the eating of the apprentice, and then just have your servant die before blocks, and then they just still have a 1/2 apprentice on the field. This way they let you go to blocks, and then it looks like you're chumping away, and then you get rid of the Scrounger.
Yeah, so like to kind of piggyback off of what Zane just said, just this also gives yourself as much information of how to sequence your removal spells too now. So like he's already blocking. And I'm like, if I do try to kill a servant, then he's able to still respond and kill something else. And if not, then it's just a trump for me, so it's fine. But there's also if I don't do anything, then he knows how to actually go coordinate with his plan. So I mean, I have nothing here. I'm gonna assume he does have some form of removal spell because I haven't seen one. Yeah, I saw one harness,
Well,
but
because otherwise that would be blocking the Forerunner. So
yeah, right. You could be blocking something that has a little bit more value to my board state. So this was pretty good for him. It was awkward that I drew this instead. If I was able to draw something like a different one, a different version of it, like something that produces black, I'll be able to get the scrap heap back mid combat and still kill the servant.
hmm
But that said, just gonna pass it here.
I mean, the thing is, you still have a Forerunner, so it is a very good threat.
Yeah.
It also enables your Scrap Heaps to come the same turn that they come back. They can also attack. So even though you don't have another black source here, you are able to add, with an additional mana, give it haste.
Yes.
So you'll have a hasty Scrounger next turn, which is a very good thing to have. So I'm going to play this Virtuosa here. Having energy already with a Virtuoso is very good. Now I have 2 Thopters I can make. This is very good with Scrap Heap Scroungers because you can jump them. Oftentimes you don't want to send the Scrap Heap Scroungers to the graveyard if you don't have to. It's a very weird card to try to block and try to like survive against, because if you're killing the Scrap Heap Scrounger, they're getting it back most of the time. Since you can see that there is 1 creature left in that graveyard. Let me just pop it out here. You can see that there is 1 creature other than the Scrap Heap Scroungers in the graveyard right now. So there is fuel for that. Zach has that. You can also see that the Forerunner will give it haste, but the Forerunner will, I have a block, right? I have the Servant to block that. But I don't really want to kill the Scrounger, because what if this Forerunner dies? Then they have another fuel, and then they can keep going.
So I think we drew this, which we don't need to use this yet. There's no way, if he has 0 cards in hand, there's no way he can actually kill us next turn. So there's no reason also to hold it up. So I think we're just gonna bring back the Scrap Heap, exiling the Apprentice, and as Zane said, we're able to give it haste and still attack for 6. Okay. The Forerunner will trade with any of his creatures, and Scrap Heap is just an annoying threat that will never die, especially if he starts blocking against the Forerunner. So this just continuously has threats.
Okay, so he's going to attack. So now, as I said, I could chump block in the situation, but the thing is, right now he has 2 Scroungers. So in the Scrounger situation, are you attacking?
Oh yeah, I was letting you talk first before.
Okay, that's fine. In this situation, I actually do want to trade with the Scrounger. I think, in my opinion, I don't know what Zach's opinion on this is, but I believe that it's actually correct to trade with the Scrounger in this situation, since the fuel in the yard is actually pretty low. And trading 2 Thopters, 6 energy with the Scrap Heap Scrounger is important in case I draw something that he'll have to waste more time trying to get it back. Plus right now they're down on the removals, down on mana. I don't have there's no threat of my Virtuoso dying if I draw a Felidar Guardian, which I can still cast because I have 1 energy left after I make the Thopters.
Yeah, that's fair. Exiling the Scrap Heap is bad in general if you have to, avoid it. I think it's still fine though, because eventually he's gonna have to block the Forerunner to kill it. So I'm not too upset about just jamming it in there. If he blocks a Servant, that's mana that he's not having. And
I think I do block all. So the option is either I chump the Scrap Heap Scrounger, but I'm gonna run out of chumpers real quick because I don't have enough energy, and I have to draw something off the top that can create more energy.
Right.
So I think we need to, I also, because you're crimped on 1 black mana, I want you to keep using your black mana every turn. So you can't, if you draw another black threat, you can't deploy it. So if you had 2 black sources, I think my play would be a little different. But because you only have 1 black source, I think the play is the way it is.
Yeah, so this attack on the Forerunner was also aggressive, but him having as little things to flicker or a little mana to use as a resource is also better for him than a hindrance to me. Again, we still have the Scrap Heap, and this only adds more fuel to it as well. Right. So we'll let this trade happen.
Yeah, for instance, if you only attacked with the Scrounger, I would probably have blocked with just the Servant, and I would have had Thopters to start attacking you.
Yep.
And in that situation, you only have 2 Scroungers in your yard, so you actually have to get rid of 1 of your Scroungers, which is very good for me in the long run.
Right.
Okay, so we drew that, and that's a pretty good draw. So there is no threat of a hasty Scrounger next turn. There is a threat of a hasty Forerunner next turn, which I'm sure which I know there are more of in the deck. But we have to start pressuring his life total because we're gonna draw. His average draw is probably going to be more aggressive than ours, especially because we're at 5 and he has so much incidental burn in the deck.
Yep.
So I'm going to start attacking.
So there's a chance he could potentially have a Deep Fiend. He still does not. So we're just gonna.
If I had a Deep Fiend, I would have tapped on the upkeep
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So the fact that he's letting me untap is fine. I have really nothing to do with my mana, but we are gonna play this now. This only punishes us if we draw Foreboding Ruins, but the way our hand is shaping up, I want to have access to as much mana next turn.
Mhm.
So hopefully we draw just a Smoldering Marsh and not get punished by that. But we are gonna pass now. This also leaves up an end of turn, bringing back Scrap Heap on his turn.
Okay. So we're gonna attack here. Let's get in 2 damage. And then I think it is correct to play this. Since I think six mana since 6 mana is the important bottleneck, and I want to be able to have it untapped. It
So
does
we're gonna,
display. It does give you information though that is necessary.
so we're gonna jam the Scrap Heap, exile on the Forerunner.
Okay.
He's at 3. Oh, he's officially at 2 now, right? With having this attack, unless he has a removal spell. He already used um 2 Harness Lightnings, and he has 1 energy. So if he has like anything for whatever color possible in this type of deck, he loses his last energy since he only has uh black and blue and black, red right now. That's kind of scary. So if he has like maybe like a white spell potentially or a black spell or anything along those lines, he has to use his last energy and slows him down for getting a Whirler, Futuroso's token ability again. So we're gonna join another swamp, which is good for us.
Okay, that's a very good draw.
And we're gonna play this Weldfast Engineer.
Okay. So Well-Patched Engineer is gonna resolve. Well-Patched Engineer is going to pump his Scrounger, so his Scrounger is actually lethal, which means that I have to remove it if possible. It also puts me in an awkward situation since he has 1 card in hand, but he still just has Scroungers every turn. It's just very, very tough situation right here. I don't think I'll be able to crawl my way out of it.
So we're just gonna attack with him. We don't have to add anything. This is a lethal attack, so this is on our opponent now to try to disrupt us.
And I do have the Fatal Push, but that does use up my last energy, and
So
now I have no access to black or white mana.
in response to this, since he has no cards in hand, and we want to make sure we trigger it, we're gonna cast this on License
Hmm.
to potentially get rid of any way of getting into any like more energy by, for example, drawing a Refiner into like a tune and be able to make a blocker. I want this Whirler off the table now.
Right.
And again, we still have lethal on board. It's up to our opponent to try to match it.
And I drew the Deep Fiend the turn too late. But I don't think it would have mattered because he would have had the Unlicensed last turn. Having only 6 mana and nothing to sack is very unfortunate when you have a Deep Fiend. I mean,
Yeah, I mean everything in your deck will be able to
everything
sack
in my
to
deck
it.
from this situation, if I had any creature at all, I'd be able to do it. And if I had one more, the cool thing with Elder Deep Fiend is sometimes you have 7 mana and you have a Thopter and you can still emerge Elder Deep Fiend because it is 1 less mana to emerge than it is
Oh,
to
I've done
cast.
it before, and it's sometimes you just have to, and it's still fine.
Exactly. So I'm going to concede here. I have an Elder Deep Fiend, and I think this game basically just came down to I mulled to 6. All right, no,
No, this
I,
one you kept the
I kept
7.
7. Kept the 7 with 2 lands actually, and the hand was pretty good. It had 2 Harness Lightnings and 2 Servants, but it was not. And I was able to draw into the other half of the combo, and I put my opponent. I believe you have 2 to 4. You have 2 shocks in the main. Most people play 2 in the main. Max.
I believe we have 3.
3 in the main. Okay, okay. And but most decks are on a very low number of shocks in the main, and having that 1 mana available, I figured this is my, I had those 3 cards. I need to go onto the board. This either win or I, fall a little bit behind, and the sequence of shock into remove my Felidar Guardian was very, very key for a
Yeah.
nice swing of tempo because that blows out 2 of my cards. I lose 3 damage. I have no good blocker anymore.
Right, so essentially that was like a 3 for, I guess like a 3 for 1 at that point.
Right.
I was
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to shock his Planeswalker, so that's the 1 card on my end. A License was a card, but it removed did 3 damage and killed the creature as well. So I
Mhm.
just kind of consider that as a wash. It's like almost a net zero loss on my card advantage at
Mhm.
that point, while also just putting him a turn, my clock a turn faster too.
Right, right. So that's gonna wrap up the pre-sideboarded matches. Um, we are going to talk about the sideboards, and then we're going to move into 3 more post-sideboard games. Alrighty, so we're going to talk about sideboarding here. We're going to look at my deck right here real quick. I think that this matchup is a little rough. The aggressive starts are kind of hard to deal with. We're actually going to take out one Painful Truth, one Elder Deep Fiend, one Saheeli Rai, and one Felidar Guardian. So we'll just move all those over there in a pile. And also one Servant of the Conduit. Those are our 5 cuts. We're going to bring in Fatal Push, Tamiyo, Double Natural State, and Release the Gremlins. This Natural State and Release the Gremlins are to remove both Scrap Heap Scrounger and Hardicurin. While not removing Scrap Heap Scrounger very effectively, it still develops a decent amount of tempo that is very important in this type of matchup. It also just grinds down so we can actually just win the game, because if they're committing resources to bringing back Scrap Heap Scroungers, we can progress our game plan as well as just combo out and win. Also, Tamiyo is a great way to tap down opposing threats, and it's very good in the mid-rangey type decks. It also draws cards, which is necessary because sometimes you just play it and draw 2 cards off of Tamiyo. It soaks up some damage if you target your opponent's creatures. And I am also bringing in one Fatal Push in addition to the 2 I have main, so they have more removal. And I think that's very important to remove the early creatures and then be able to deploy my own things. I'm taking out one Deep Fiend because even though it is good, I think it is very hard to cast some of the time. I'm taking out Painful Truth because even though I need cards, I believe that losing 3 life is not, and spending 3 mana is not worth a turn. And also I'm taking out one Saheeli and one Felidar Guardian to slim down on the combo. I'm still going to find the combo a decent amount of the time because I have a lot of selection in my deck. But I'm going to cut down on it because I don't think it's as important as just playing some value creatures and gaining some resources and stopping the aggression and then being able to win. I'm also going to cut one Servant of the Conduit since we're not trying to ramp into the combo as quickly. We have one less Deep Fiend. I just want to have less 2/2s that don't do much on their own. So that's going to be my boarding.
All right, so for sideboarding here, these will be the 8 cards we're bringing in, and these will be the 8 cards we're bringing out. So the problem with Inventus, Apprentice, and Bomac Courier against these decks is the fact that they get bricked very easy. Most of the creatures have 3 power, and it just you can't attack the Bomac, and it's not something that you want to suicide into early in the game, and it's one of your worst top decks later. Thing with Inventus Apprentice is for the same reason. Like they're just trying to go for late. So they when they have Rogue Refiners and they have just Rela Virtuosos, they're able just to jump in. It doesn't really do much, right? It doesn't actually progress your board state. And in these type of matchups, I like going a little bit bigger and grindier. So we're going to bring in one Swamp because we're adding a bunch of 4 and 5 drops on our deck, 3 Transgress. We're going to try to pick their hand apart. We want to make sure that we can slow them down while we're trying to set up our game plan. We have 2 Omnixilus to draw cards and answer some problematic threats like Whirl of Virtuosos and Felidar Guardians. Chandra Torch Defiance because she's just really good threat to have. She either draws you cards, adds you mana so you can double spell, or just kills a threat as well. Kalidas is not something I'm like entirely sold on, but out of the board, I don't think that's something like there's anything else we want. We don't want extra fade. We don't want fatal pushes at all, really, and we don't want release the gremlins. They don't have anything to really hit. So I think Kalidas is just overall good at grinding out games as well. We're gonna have more removal spells for them. And if they try Deep Fiend also, we get another token as well. So we just have a lot of ways of grinding them out and having a lot of threats, a lot of answers to the threats. So that's why I would bring in the Cletus, and that's how I would board for this matchup.